Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to The Extra Point. And what an episode because tonight we are kicking off the NFL season with one hell of a game with two phenomenal quarterbacks. We're talking about Mahomes and Watson. This should be a great showdown. What a way to kick off the NFL season. And we're kicking off that season right here on The Extra Point from the office of R2 Sports Management. And as always, I'm joined today with my colleagues coming out of Indiana, Jeremy Coleman. How are we doing today, Jeremy?
Doing great, Roland. Football's back.
Hey, football day it is. And coming out of New Jersey, Robert Parker. How are we doing today, Robert?
How's it going, Roland? Super excited that we get to watch football tonight.
Hey, I think we all are, but of course, there's a lot of nuances to that, right? So we'll see how that looks tonight. And coming out of the great state of New York, we got Justice Gordon. How we doing today, Justice?
I'm doing great. I don't think there's a person in America who's not doing great right now. We got football back, and I'm excited. I'm ready.
Hey, I think there's a lot of sports enthusiasts out there that are pretty excited about tonight. But there's a lot of things to talk about tonight, right? I'm very curious. Like I'm quite sure a lot of football fans. Hey, what is the atmosphere going to look like? What is the stadium going to look like right now? The official announcement by the NFL is that they're looking at a 22% capacity. That's roughly about 17,000 personnel in the stadium tonight. Let's see what type of COVID parameters are put in place. How is that going to look for the NFL? I'm quite sure we're going to see a lot of banners regarding unity and social justice and so forth, much like the NBA. But still in all, tonight is a great night because we are here talking football. So let's go ahead and kick it off right now. Watson, a phenomenal quarterback. He definitely lost a huge weapon this offseason. However, he definitely proved his point on what he can bring to the table, Jeremy. What do you think about his contract extension? Is it something that he definitely earned, and what is the future going to look like for him with this huge contract?
Well, I definitely think he earned it. He's one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL. And then the other interesting thing I saw about the deal was that there is a no trade clause in there. So that tells me he wants to be in Houston, and he's going to be there for the long haul now. There's kind of some chatter, before, the talks kind of started on an extension and a new deal for him, then Watson might want to test the market if he became a free agent or if the Texans didn't use the franchise tag on him. But really, this is a great deal for both sides. Houston gets to lock up their franchise quarterback for another 4 years in addition to his contract already. And then, Watson's franchise quarterback. He's done some great things in Houston. There's no reason to expect anything other going forward.
Hey, going to Robert out there in New Jersey. Robert, definitely a huge contract for Watson, well deserved, but does he have enough weapons to carry him in this franchise?
I think that's the question that we're going to have to see this year, Roland. He lost a big weapon in DeAndre Hopkins in the offseason. I think the extension was well deserved, just like Jeremy said. But I think you're going to see Deshaun Watson, carry the team on the ground with his feet, more so with his arm, until he gets acclimated with the weapons that he has around him. So I think, that's a wait to see approach as the weapons that we have around him. I know Brandon Cooks is a game time decision tonight. And I know he's active, but, how many reps and snaps that he will take, we shall see. But I think, if Will Fuller can stay healthy, I think he can, help Deshaun Watson, especially on the deep ball, and, take the top off the coverage, Roland.
Justice, coming out of New York, is this a offense that will be a threat this season?
In my opinion, it's kind of tough to say. Like Jeremy and like Robert have said, they lost DeAndre Hopkins, and right now it's kind of it's an injury roster. They got Brandon Cooks. He struggles to stay healthy. Will Fuller, he struggles to stay healthy. David Johnson, you got to see if he can stay healthy. So all the key pieces around him right now, it's a question mark. They're all phenomenal players when they can stay on the field. But I think it comes down to if they can stay healthy. I want to see David Johnson really bounce back. He's kind of had a struggle the past few years.
Very true.
Will
Very true.
Fuller, yeah, Will Fuller. I think next year is his contract year. He definitely wants to stay on the field and he wants to get that big money payday. So they do have weapons around him. It remains to be seen if they can stay healthy.
Hey, I know on being on the road tonight, a lot of teams they get pumped up to be on the road because they have something to prove. I do believe Watson is the type of player, especially with this offseason contract deal. He has a lot to prove. But I do believe in order to help him to make that point, those weapons around him will have to step up to the plate. So, kudos to Watson. Congrats on the huge contract. But tonight, you definitely got your hands full because you're dealing with the Super Bowl champs, one of the most potent offenses we've seen in decades. And of course, at the helm of that is Mahomes. Several episodes ago, we talked about Mahomes. We talked about that huge contract. We were able to have Robert Selwyn coming in from the entertainment market. He's actually an agent who talked about that contract, which is a huge contract, one of the biggest topics in the off season. So really huge for those guys. But also Andy Reid got a nice contract. So what do you think about that, Jeremy? Is Andy Reid going to finish his career here in Kansas?
Well, I think it'd be smart because I think Mahomes is going to be there longer than he is if that's the case. If Mahomes is playing at the level he does, I mean, I don't see why Andy Reid's going to retire anytime soon. But I mean, it was a well-deserved extension. Brought Kansas City its first Super Bowl in 50 years since they had won their first Super Bowl. So I mean, they've had some unprecedented success here. I also think it's worth pointing out that Brian Veach, the general manager of the Kansas City Chiefs, got a big extension this year too. So I mean, the Chiefs organization is, that they've tied, their sales to these three key players, and even Chris Jones to an extent got his big deal. They solidified their GM for the next 7 years, their coach for the next 7 years, Mahomes for the next 10 years, Chris Jones for the next 5. Arguably, they've got their roster set for the foreseeable future, minus, moves you make year in and year out. They still have some other good players on that roster. Tyreek Hill's under contract. Tyrann Mathieu is still there. They have a good core here for the long haul. So, I mean, they're all deserving of the contracts they got. They were able to bring home the hardware. So the only hope is they continue to bring home more hardware every year.
Hey, Robert, to Jeremy's point, look, they have put the chess pieces in place. They are ready to make strategic moves, not just for this season, but 2 to 3 years down the road. Andy Reid, phenomenal coach, definitely going to be a Hall of Famer. The guy has been there. He's done it. He's an offensive mastermind. What's your take on his contract and him moving into the future with this organization?
Yeah, Roland, just like Jeremy said, I think the Pat Mahomes Andy Reid relationship is a match made in heaven. And just like you said, he's an offensive guru. He has the quarterback at the helm that can make every necessary throw. And we've seen Pat Mahomes, he ripped off a couple of long runs in the playoff run going to the Super Bowl last year. So he can do it on the ground. I mean, you don't want to see your quarterback who's making, near $500 million running around like Lamar Jackson or Deshaun Watson. But hey, I mean that Andy Reid's offense and those weapons that he's surrounded with, I mean, it's like a fast break offense in the NBA, if you ask me. So I think Andy Reid and Pat Mahomes is going to be together for at least the next 7 years.
Hey, I hear you there. And, once again, let's give a major shout out to Lee Steinberg, Sports Entertainment, Robert Selwyn, who came onto the show a couple of episodes ago and spoke about that contract and what it took to put such a dynamic contract like that together for Mahomes. So kudos to that organization. I think very highly of that entertainment sports agency. They got nothing but sound professionals, square individuals who I think are going to do phenomenal things for Mahomes moving into the future. Now, we got some other unfinished business with the Kansas City Chiefs. And to everyone who's watching out there, especially those here in Colorado, we have a former University of Colorado Buffalo, Eric Bieniemy, who was shopped around a little bit to become a head coach. He did not get a head coaching gig this year. But what do you think, Justice? Do you think Eric Bieniemy is going to be part of this long-term group, or should he be definitely in the running to be a head coach next season?
Well, from the Chiefs' perspective, I think it would be smart to lock him up as the offensive coordinator for the foreseeable future. But I don't think that's what he wants. He's been wanting a head coaching gig for a few years now. There's been a lot of criticism around the league, criticizing other teams, saying he should have been hired by now. It's going to be interesting to see what happens next year. Will he be hired as a head coach? I don't know, honestly. I think he should have been hired a few years ago. He's a great offensive mind. He comes from that Andy Reid tree of coaches who have had great success over the past few years. I think he has all it takes to be a head coach, and I think teams should definitely take a look at him, and I think he should have a job next year.
Hey, Justice makes a great point, Jeremy. Even though Eric Bieniemy wants to be a head coach, and I would think Andy Reid, who's had many folks come under his tutelage, would love to see this young man grow to be a head coach in the NFL. But if you want to make a 2-3 year run in the NFL, especially with the talent that's out there right now, do you try to say, eventually we will get you there, Eric, but in the moment, we need you to stay put and become and lock him up as that offensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs?
Well, I think Justice kind of hit the nail on the head. It's all about what, Eric Bieniemy wants to do. I think he will be a head coach eventually, but at the moment, he's in a great situation. He gets to work with the best quarterback in the NFL, one of the most electric offenses, can continue to learn from Andy Reid and the staff that's there. Honestly, I think it's more about when he wants to go than anything. I know Justice said and you both said, he had a few interviews. I think it's all about timing. I think under the current situation I think he's been considered. I think he has the luxury of kind of waiting and taking, best case scenario when it comes to the head coaching job. Maybe no gig really excited him this year as to where, there could be future jobs that come open where he could be like, oh, maybe I stick around here for another year or two and, so-and-so might be retiring down the road or there might be a vacancy there. So in the short run, enjoy it while you can. You're at a great organization. You get to work with the talent you do. Because I do think eventually he's going to tell the Chiefs, I'm going to take my opportunity to go be a head coach somewhere. I think it's been close to happening. And like Justice said, I think it's a little puzzling why some teams haven't pulled the trigger on him yet. So enjoy it while you can and enjoy working with Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, as an offensive coordinator, definitely do enjoy working with such a talent as Mahomes. And to your point, Jeremy, there's been some criticism out there that maybe one of the reasons a lot of teams are not really taking his head coach campaign seriously is because when you have a offensive mastermind like Andy Reid at your side, who technically is really running the offense? Is it Eric Bieniemy or is it Andy Reid through Eric Bieniemy, who's calling the offense. So a lot of that criticism has been out there, but I can tell you as a current Colorado native who's watched Eric Bieniemy play at the University of Colorado, what a stellar career he had there. To see him in the NFL in the position that he's in, I would tell you it would be a dream to watch this Colorado native make it to being an NFL head coach as a protege of Andy Reid, especially coming off a huge Super Bowl victory. And before we transition, we talked about this Kansas City team, Chief, what they've done as an organization. But as we always talk about when it comes to leadership, it starts from the top. And I will tell you, the Hunt family is a classy family that gets it done the right way. Robert, what do you have to say about the Hunt family and the way they have put this together for the city there?
I think it speaks volumes in regards to what the Hunt family has put together, Roland. Once again, you look at the contract that Pat Mahomes got, you look at the contract that Andy Reid has gotten, and you look at the pieces that they're building around to build up that organization. We know that fan base is very, very rabid. No one wants to go into Arrowhead and play, when, they have all their fans there. And with a quarterback in Pat Mahomes that can get the job done on the biggest stage, I think they're putting something together special. I mean, if they can keep all the pieces together, we might see, a Robert Kraft, Bill Belichick kind of dynasty run in the next couple of years.
Hey, I would agree with you on that one, Robert. I think right now, as I mentioned earlier, the chess pieces are in place to pull this off. So going to Justice, what do you think about the Hunt family and how they put this together?
Yeah, I think Robert hit it on the head. I mean, what they've done over the past 5-10 years, it speaks for itself. I mean, the core they've built around there is full of talent. They've done a smart job of locking up their young, talented guys. They have every core player on that team locked up probably for the next 4 years. That's pretty impressive to have your head coach that you love locked up. I mean, I just don't know where they're getting all this money to do it. I mean, Chris Jones, he got a big contract. Mahomes got a big contract. Kelsey got a sizable contract. Hill's on a big contract. It's amazing what they've done with the money they have. And I think they're, like Robert said, they could make a Patriots type of run at a dynasty over these next 10 years or so.
I totally agree with all of you. And this is going to be phenomenal for the Kansas City Chiefs. So a lot to see over the next couple of years. For everyone who is watching, you are tuned in to The Extra Point, and tonight is NFL kickoff night, and what better place to spend it here than with us on The Extra Point in affiliation with R2 Sports Management. And I tell you, with Jeremy Coleman coming out of Indiana, Justice Gordon coming out of New York, and Robert Parker coming out of New Jersey, what better place to be right now, because we are only minutes away from the kickoff of the NFL season. So I am Roland Rainey, your host of The Extra Point, CEO of R2 Sports Management, and this is beyond exciting to kind of get back to some sense of normalcy, especially in the midst of this COVID pandemic. And as we mentioned earlier, it would be interesting to see what the stadium is going to look like tonight. At a 22% capacity, you're looking at roughly at 22% for that stadium, you're looking at about 17,000 folks in that stadium. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this is going to come off tonight. The NFL has been able to pull it off. MLB has been able to pull it off. Let's see if the NFL can do it tonight. And speaking of tonight, high power offense, high power quarterbacks. We are going to start with Justice out of New York. What is your pick for tonight?
Yeah, I think, Deshaun Watson's great. I think with all the turnover that's happened this offseason with DeAndre Hopkins, Cook's questionable, who knows how much he's going to play. Their defense it has J.J. Watt, McKinney, Justin Reed, a rising star who I love on defense. But I think the Kansas City Chiefs come out with a statement tonight. With no preseason, I don't think it's going to be a shootout like some people expect. I think there's going to be some sloppiness, getting on the same page, stuff like that. I could see, like a 24-13 win by the Chiefs. I love Deshaun Watson. What he did in that Bills game in the playoffs was insane. That escape sack, and I think it was a touchdown. That was just incredible. He's a phenomenal player. But I think, it's going to take some time to get on target, get in rhythm with these new targets he has. And I think the Chiefs should come out and make a statement tonight.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, right here on the Extra Point, tonight, NFL kickoff. You've heard it from Justice Gordon out of New York. Kansas City Chiefs, 24-13. Let's go on over to Indiana with Jeremy Coleman. Jeremy, who is your pick tonight?
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with the Chiefs as well. That offense is pretty much all back. I think that's going to be a big proponent tonight. But really, there's not much missing from the Kansas City Super Bowl squad, that won it all, 8 months ago. That team is still largely intact. As where Houston's, they've changed some pieces on offense. We all know they lost DeAndre Hopkins. I think the big thing is if Houston is going to pull off the win tonight, who is going to step up and make plays for Houston? I think both David Johnson should have a bigger role tonight. I also think that the Texans can also utilize the middle of the field more with Randall Cobb, Darren Fells, Jordan Akins. I think they can kind of get after the Kansas City. I think they can get after the middle of the Chiefs defense, see if they can make them pay there. You have to remember Darren Fells was a big red zone weapon for them. Last year had 7 touchdowns, roughly maybe 400 yards or something. So it's all about who's going to step up for the Texans if they are going to make a statement win tonight.
Hey, I hear you there. So what type of score are you going to give me here, Jeremy?
Score. I'll go with 27-20. 27-20 sounds about right. I think it's going to be a close game.
Wow. Well, that's a pretty close game. So this is going to be interesting. That was Jeremy, ladies and gentlemen, out of Indiana on the Extra Point. 27-20, Kansas City. Let's shoot on over to New Jersey. Robert, who do you have tonight?
Once again, Roland, I have to agree with Jeremy and Justice. I think the Kansas City Chiefs pull this off. Once again, they have so many weapons on offense, and that defense played really, really well last year going down the stretch. And they also get to break in a new weapon and, Clyde Edwards-Helaire running out the backfield. So I think everyone missed the fact that they're bringing in a new weapon on top of Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, Sammy Watkins, and Demarcus Robinson. But at the end of the day, I think, Deshaun Watson, not only does he have to, play exceptionally well and throw the ball, but he also has to use his feet and keep that Kansas City defense honest. But in order for Texas to make the upset win, I think, David Johnson is going to have to get at least 150 yards rushing and maybe 50 yards receiving out the backfield. But I just don't see that happening. And I got the Kansas City Chiefs 31-20, Roland.
31-20, Robert coming out of New Jersey with Kansas City. So I guess I will round this off, and I guess we are going to go all 4. We're going all in. I'm picking the Kansas City Chiefs. To Jeremy's and Justice point, this team is intact. It's a high-powered offense. It's on fire. It's excited off the Super Bowl win. They added pieces. Think about that. They added pieces to an already high-powered offense. The defense still can use some work, but I still believe Kansas City pulls this off. There's just too many adjustments and changeovers with the Texans. You lose a big threat in Hopkins. I don't believe it's going to be there for the Texans. I think Watson is going to have to put too much work in tonight. To your point, Robert, I don't see the running game really getting off to a fast-paced start. He would definitely need to have about 100 plus yards to even pull a close victory off or even make the game close. I just don't see that happening tonight. I truly believe we are going to see that high-powered offense in Kansas City take it to the Texans, and I'm going all in right now. I think we're going to see a 27-10 game. Kansas City on top. I don't see the Texans really getting in that red zone a whole lot tonight. And if they do, it will have to come through Watson using his legs. But we know by the time you get to the third quarter, you're a little fatigued. And now you're going to have to go to the passing game, especially if that run game is not there. Looking at some of the different defensive schemes that Kansas like to put on the field, the moment they take away between the hashes, the moment they take that away from the Texans, there's not a whole lot of places that they can really go. There's not a whole lot of finesse in that offense. So I think Andy Reid and that staff, they are going to quickly shut down the passing game. They will neutralize the run game, and it's going to really come down to Watson scrambling on that field. So I don't see a whole lot happening there. So I think we got a 4-for-4 Kansas City tonight. I'm going with 27-10. We got Robert. You're going pretty big there, Robert. Or you really believe that's going to happen?
Yeah, Roland. I know the forecast is calling for rain, and it's the weather conditions is probably going to be slippery and sloppery. But the reason why I think that Kansas City offense is just too high powered. And one thing you can't defend Tyreek Hill on a dry field. You're definitely sure not going to defend him on a wet field. So in that regard, I can see Tyreek Hill going for 2 touchdowns, and I can also see Travis Kelce going for 2 touchdowns. So that puts Pat Mahomes at least throwing 3 touchdowns. So once again, I'm gonna go with the Kansas City Chiefs 31-20.
You make a great point, and something I want to really emphasize. And Justice alluded to this earlier. I believe what we will see immediately out of the gate might be slightly disappointing. No preseason, a really regimented COVID environment practice session. So I do believe you'll get a little bit of that sloppiness, right? Maybe some incomplete passes, maybe not breaking any big runs initially. But eventually, maybe late second quarter, coming out of the halftime, maybe you might start seeing the teams get into a flow of the game. But I do believe, to Justice's point, we're probably going to see a little bit of sloppiness in the first part of the game. So this is still going to be exciting. I'm telling you, there's people across the nation right now that are, making their pizza orders. They're sitting there getting ready to be tied to the TV because one of the greatest sports to be played here in America, NFL football, is back. It's tonight. And even though we're in a COVID environment, I think people are really going to be enthralled with the fact that sports is back. So you have a little bit of that MLB, as I mentioned earlier. You have a little bit of that NBA with the playoffs and the way that's going right now. And now you have football on top of it, and everybody gets to see Pat Mahomes right out of the gate, right? So having said that, let's go ahead around the clock real quick. Last word. Let's start with Jeremy out of Indiana. Last word with you. What do you have?
Going to kind of build off what you said about it being sloppy. I actually think that could lend to a higher scoring game. I think it's worth pointing out that defenses and tackling is probably going to be, just as suspect as the offense could be. And I think you could see some big time plays off that. Last thing I'll leave you guys with is I think if both of these teams want to succeed on defense, keep these quarterbacks in the pocket. These guys excel getting outside the pocket and making improv plays. These are probably two of the best quarterbacks in the game that do it. A handful of others, Russell Wilson, Lamar Jackson. These guys are all dynamic when you get them outside the pocket. What I would do is I would do a contain rush all night long and make them beat you from the pocket.
All right, you heard it from Jeremy. Keep the quarterbacks in the pocket. Going to New York, Justice. Last word. What's your take?
Yeah, I kind of want to circle back to something you said, Roland, about the Kansas City Chiefs defense. You know, it's far from perfect. It's not great. So, you know, I could definitely see Deshaun Watson pulling up an upset tonight. You know, Rashad Brilliant, their top corner, he's out. You know, they're pretty thin at corner right now. So, you know, if the Texans want to have a chance, they're gonna have to get David Johnson going, and they're gonna have to get Will Fuller going. Will Fuller, if he can get over the top of those corners, you know, it could definitely be a close game tonight.
Hey, great point about the defense. You know, I said it last season. I'll say it again this season. Even though Kansas has a very high-powered offense, at times the defense can be very suspect. So they need to really work through that. All right, going over to New Jersey, Robert. Last word.
Yeah, Roland, I definitely agree with Justice on this one. I think in order for, you know, Deshaun Watson and the Houston Texans to pull the upset, they're going to have to run the ball, and, you know, they're going to have to eat clock and keep the ball out of Pat Mahomes' hands. And the one thing that Deshaun Watson does better than any other quarterback in the NFL, probably besides Russell Wilson, is that he extends plays. So we can see a lot of plays that's probably going to break down tonight that Deshaun Watson is going to extend and hit a receiver on the run. And just like Justin said, if Will Fuller can get over the top on these corners, which we know he can because he has speed, it could be a long night for that Kansas City defense. However, I just think, you know, Pat Mahomes and, you know, coming off that Super Bowl game one, I think they're going to be ready and they're going to be locked and loaded, and they're going to key in on Deshaun Watson, and they're going to make every other player on that team beat him. But don't be surprised if we see some trick plays. We have Randall Cobb. You know, he played some quarterback in Kentucky. He might, you know, so look out for the trickery, and that might get, you know, Kansas City napping for a big play. And we can see that being an upset. So watch out for those trick plays tonight for the Houston Texans, Roland.
Hey, all phenomenal points. And we are minutes away, ladies and gentlemen, from the kickoff of the NFL season. What a great time. And as always, major shout out to Jeremy, Justice, and Robert, professional scouts, here with me on the Extra Point. We are excited. We will be here week in and week out with our analysis of the game, and we will be bringing that to you, the fans out there of the Extra Point. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Roland Rainey, CEO of R2 Sports Management, coming to you live off the Extra Point. Enjoy the game.